Ticktockers, I'm Trisha Pinastri. I was trained at Le Cordon Bleu and I've worked at numerous restaurants in Los Angeles. I can't wait to get started today. We're going to go over searing, simmering, and shredding chicken, some basic knife skills and pickling, how to put together a homemade taco recipe, and pressing and making tortillas. Let's get started. These are just some of the vegetables we'll be working with today. And our final goal, this taco. Doesn't it look delicious? The first thing we're gonna do is start with making our tortillas because they need to rest for 30 minutes. We're going to start by measuring out 1 cup of masa. It is important to note the difference between measuring by weight and measuring by volume. Even though 1 cup measures volume, dry ingredients are normally measured by weight. So when you are putting flour, a dry ingredient, into a 1 cup measuring cup, you need to do it by emptying tablespoon at a time so that it is not packed too tightly, which often happens when you dip a measuring cup into a dry ingredient like flour. After you fill the measuring cup, scrape off the excess from the top. As you can see here, I have a lot of experience filling measuring cups and I got it right on. I'm going to add a tablespoon of butter to this recipe for flavor. I'm using salted butter here. Next, I'm going to add my warm water. The warmth of the water will help the flour to better absorb the liquid. I'm going to add half at one time, mix the dough, and then add a small amount at a time until a solid form develops. The recipe provided here is the one that came with these flour tortillas. You'll want to check your own Masa recipe depending on if you're getting flour or corn. I don't want my dough to be too moist. I'm just looking for it to begin to form a ball. Once the ball begins to form, I'll make sure that I have the flour off the sides of the bowl and move that ball onto the cutting board. Flour the cutting board and knead your dough. You may only have to do this around 10 times. When kneading dough, push it away from you and turn it by a quarter turn. Push it away from you, turn it by a quarter turn. Continue doing this for about 10 times, reform a ball, put it back in the bowl and cover it so that it can rest for about 30 minutes. This relaxes the glutens, which are like rubber bands inside the flour, so that eventually you'll be able to stretch it into a tortilla. And we're on to chicken. So I season my chicken on one side, the top side, and season the bottom side once I have it searing in the pan. I feel like when you season chicken on both sides, you lose half of your seasoning to the dish. I've already begun to heat my pan, and I will add oil to a hot pan and then chicken to hot oil. I'm using avocado oil, but you can use olive oil or coconut oil, really any oil that doesn't have a strong flavor that will impart itself into your dish. You know that your oil is hot enough when you can see that shimmer move across the surface. Let's listen. We can hear the chicken sizzling right here. You don't want to overcrowd your chicken or any product that you're looking to sear. You want to leave lots of room for moisture to escape, or you'll end up steaming whatever it is you're trying to develop that nice caramelized crust on. Try not to move your chicken after it enters the pan. It will release once that caramelized crust has been formed. So right before I'm about to turn it, I season the second side, and this way the salt and pepper is fresh and hasn't fully dissolved or slid off or gotten stuck to anything other than the product that I intend for it to be on. Oh, look at that golden crust. Perfect. This is where we will add our liquid. You can add chicken broth, vegetable broth, or water. The key is to turn down the heat and keep the liquid at a slow simmer. This is well below a rolling boil. Do this for 20 to 30 minutes to keep your chicken tender and moist. On to simple pickling. We'll pickle red onion and radishes separately, but both in red wine vinegar. Let's learn some basic knife skills. When cutting an onion, we want to cut from the root to the tip. Your next cut should be cutting the tip off. A little tip, always have a trash can nearby. It'll keep you from having to run back and forth from your kitchen trash throughout your prep work. Peel the outside of the onion, and then you can begin your slicing. On slicing, you want to maintain and keep intact the root of the onion, so always start from the tip. For our pickled red onions, we want them to be the perfect size to fit in a taco. So about 1 inch long and 1/4 inch wide. This will give the red onions enough surface area that it can absorb the red wine vinegar for a great flavor, but maintain their integrity and their red onion flavor while in the pickling liquid. Cut the second red onion off camera to save time. We're only going to use red wine vinegar to pickle the onions and the radishes, so let's get these guys into a mason jar. Pack them in tight because the red wine vinegar can get into all the cracks and crevices without a problem. You'll be amazed at how much you can fit in. Once you get it full, pound it on the table and press it down. I'm sure you can fit even more. See, that's a ton. Now let's just pour the red wine vinegar in, seal it up, and we're ready to go. We can add the other red onions to the sauté. Ideally, you'd like these to be able to sit between 4 and 24 hours before serving, but they'll hold in the refrigerator for about a week. Make sure to turn the jar every once in a while just to keep them moving. On to radishes. When cutting round vegetables like this, it's important to create a flat side. We're going to start off by cutting the root and the end, and that gives us a flat side so we can have a stable cutting surface. Let's get moving. I'll save you from having to watch this next part. We'll cut the radishes off screen. See? Just about done. You know the routine. Let's get them in that mason jar, fill it up with red wine vinegar, and we're good to go. Ha ha ha, shake, 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 pound, pound, pound. Okay, this is where we move on to our homemade taco seasoning. 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. Did you get all that? If not, it's written above. quick important note, you need to taste your chili powder before you decide how much you want to add. Every chili powder, even dried, varies in heat from manufacturer to manufacturer. So put a little on your finger and dab it on your tongue. If it burns your tongue, you may want to use less than 1 tablespoon. All right, moving on to the slaw. We're going to use a half a head of green cabbage, a half a head of red cabbage, which is also purple, and some cilantro. Plus, we're going to use shredded carrots, which I cheated and I bought in the bag. One of the best kitchen tips ever is how to juice citrus fruits. Take a fork, put your thumb against the back of the tines, turn the fork clockwise and your fruit counterclockwise. This will get the maximum amount of juice out of each piece. It is amazing, trust me. Add to this a half a cup of mayonnaise and then about 2 tablespoons of the taco seasoning. I eyeball it here, but you can go ahead and give it a measure. It'll be about half of the taco seasoning that you made. Mix this all up and then lay your fork across it and add your vegetable ingredients over the top of it. It'll keep your vegetable ingredients separated from the dressing until you're ready to toss them. Isn't it funny that red cabbage is actually purple? All right, remove those outer leaves. That's the equivalent of washing a cabbage. And then we're gonna remove the stem. Just like the red onion for pickling, we wanna slice the cabbage so that the pieces fit into our taco. So we're gonna aim for about 1/4 inch in thickness, and then we'll cut this into thirds so that the pieces aren't too big. We'll do this for both the red cabbage and the green cabbage. Once we're done doing this and chopping the cilantro and adding the carrots, we'll toss it in the dressing that we created. What this does is it macerates this fibrous cabbage vegetable. What that means is that it actually cooks it. The acid in the lime juice will help to break it down so that our slaw is not a bunch of raw vegetables. In a way, they've been cooked and it's much easier to digest and they're very flavorful. Do we really need to see the exact same thing happen with the green cabbage that we just watched with the red cabbage? Answer, no. Let's move on. Add about 1 cup of carrots, and then we'll get to chopping our cilantro. This is so much easier than it looks. There's no need to take the rubber band off fresh herbs. Just go ahead and chop, moving in a V shape from the leaves down to the roots. There's a ton of cilantro in one bunch, and it can last up to 4 dishes. Wash it, which I did in advance. Just keep it bunched together and run it under cold water. Then shake it dry and bang it against a paper towel. Remember that fork that we left buried under our fresh vegetables? Well, it's held our fresh veggies off of the dressing and it's time to toss now. Toss, toss, toss. Toss, toss, toss. So remember earlier when I talked about the lime juice cooking the fresh vegetables? It totally does, but it necessitates that we come back every once in a while and stir that up. On to sauteing our fresh vegetables. We'll be sauteing red peppers, orange peppers, yellow peppers, and onions. More knife skills. Let's move on to how to cut peppers. I've seen peppers cut in a million different ways, but nothing compares to cutting them from the top to the bottom. This helps you avoid the ribs, and it lets you see where the seeds are so you can avoid them too. As always, you want to keep in mind what your end product should be, what it should look like, and what it is you're going to eat. We want these vegetables to be small enough that they'll fit in our tacos and large enough that we'll be able to taste their individual flavor. Inside the pieces of the red bell pepper, you'll see white membranes. This is also called the ribs or pith. In this third piece, I go to trim it. This is purely for appearances. It doesn't really have any flavor. Taking them or removing them won't change the way your dish tastes in the end. Oh, I think we get the point. Last but not least on the chopping block, the yellow onion. What have we learned? Cut root to tip, cut the tip off, keep the root intact, peel the onion, decide how big we want our pieces to be in our final product, and aim for that goal. Just a quick tip. If we were going to chop this onion or dice it, you would go side to side and up and down, and then do 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch slices to make these smaller. But we can do that in another video. Yummy fresh vegetables, hot pan, good oil, and see how it's shimmering and spreading out? I'm adding butter for flavor, and this is a really good trick because the oil raises the smoke point of the butter, or the temperature in which the butter would brown. So it's like a balance between the butter and the oil, but you get that great butter flavor. You'll see me stirring the vegetables right here, but for much of that 10 minutes, I did not touch them, which is key to good caramelization. Another key is not overcrowding the pan, so there's plenty of room for the liquid to evaporate. In order for there to be enough room for these vegetables, we'll have to do it in batches. For sauteing vegetables, I season afterwards because salt can often bring out the liquid in something, and so it can prevent browning. Don't these look delicious? All right, about 10 minutes ago, I turned off that simmering chicken and I let it rest. Now it's time to shred. I use 2 forks to shred my chicken, even my carnitas, because I can use the backs of the forks against one another for leverage against some of the tougher cuts of meat. I won't make you sit there while I shred all 4 breasts of chicken. The process is identical for every breast. Just make sure that your goal is that your pieces are bite-sized and that they fit into your tacos. A quick tip, if you're going to have a party or serve a big group and you want to do many chicken breasts at one time, you can use this exact same method of cooking and put your cooled chicken breasts into a mixer with a hook attachment, and it will shred all the breasts at once. Ta-da! Look, 4 chicken breasts, done, just like that. Now we want to add some of the cooking liquid just to keep the chicken moist. The rest of that cooking liquid is valuable stuff. Don't throw it away. You can use it to make soups or sauces, so you can freeze it in ice cube trays for later use. Woohoo! Our final step, pressing our tortillas. We want to portion these into about a golf ball size. Look for something non-stick that you can press the tortillas in between. I used a Ziploc with 2 sides cut. You'll see. It opens, it has a seam. I take each portion, put it in between, use my tortilla press, and voila, a perfect tortilla. I did this with each of the 6 portions, but I don't feel like it's necessary that we sit through watching all of that. You get the idea. Next, it's like baking bread, but on the stovetop. They call it dry frying. If you've made a quesadilla, then you get the idea. Just put it in a hot pan, wait for it to brown on one side, and then flip it over. Wait for it to brown on the second side, and voila, you're done. Phew, I'm starving. We made it through all of that. Let's have some tacos. A little bit of chicken, a little bit of vegetables, some Mexican slaw, some pickled red onions and radishes, some fresh cilantro and scallions. Oh my goodness, delicious. For a vegetarian option, omit the chicken. Just go with the fresh vegetable sauté, the Mexican slaw, pickled radishes and red onions, fresh cilantro, fresh scallions, and those homemade tortillas. All right, I'd love to see what you guys put together. Make this with your mom and post it. Thanks, TikTokers.